Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria.
And I'm Marlise.
Our future energy economy is in jeopardy. The United States is facing a pending shortage of the critical metals required to produce renewable energy products. Things like solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicles all require critical metals like copper, nickel, platinum, and cobalt, and lots of them. But the United States is not projected to keep up with this demand. But what if there were a way to look at this reality as an opportunity instead of a crisis? And what if the answer was sitting in our trash? Since we are in Virginia, Minnesota today, it seems appropriate to call this opportunity e-mining. Electronic waste, or e-waste, can be thought of as anything with a battery, a cord, or a circuit board that has reached the end of its useful life. I would love to see a raise of hands, anybody who has a drawer full of old e-waste that they have yet to get rid of. Oh my gosh, yeah, everybody, right? Things like outdated chargers, used batteries, DVD players, even old cell phones. Globally, e-waste is growing by 4% annually, and it will continue to do so through the 21st century. And in this waste stream are critical metals like copper, nickel, platinum, and cobalt. Everything that we need for the energy transition is right here, and it can be recovered or e-mined. There are many steps that need to be taken before electronics can be completely circular. However, the metals in our e-waste can be almost infinitely recycled, and the industry is successfully recovering much of this material to be used in remanufacturing today. But Minnesota's e-mining economy is very underdeveloped. And the first step towards recovering $3 billion worth of critical metals is effective collection.
This is where our story gets local. A few years ago, I was inspired by a lecture given by Dr. Rupali Padki of Macalester College. She had spent her sabbatical year traveling the world studying the future of mining. And I remember her talking about recycling e-waste as a key way to get critical metals that we need, that Maria just talked about, e-mining. So the Iron Range Partnership for Sustainability, of which I'm a part, decided to take some action. We started collecting e-waste at our 2 annual festivals, the Earth Fest and the Pasty Festival. Some of you may have brought us e-waste. We rented U-Hauls, we collected it, we took it to the drop-off point, and we paid to have it recycled. That same spring, my friend Keith Steva was considering a Minnesota Senate run. And I called him and I said, maybe your campaign should think about talking about the possibility of e-waste recycling jobs for the Iron Range. Could we do that? And Keith and I started emailing back and forth, like, well, how much is there and what the proportion of it is metal? And over the next 4 months or so, I gathered about 100 pieces of research, and Keith started calculating quantities and proportions and values. We sent those results to Dr. Padki in June, and she forwarded them to Maria Jensen, whom we didn't know at the time. And we met Maria in June and decided, oh my goodness, we can collaborate. Maria was working for a Minnesota recycling company, so she had on-the-ground data for what was being recycled in terms of e-waste in Minnesota. So we got to tweak our results to reflect a uniquely Minnesotan stream of e-waste. That fall, we sat around Maria's dining room table for 3 whole days, and we hashed it out, deciding what have we got? What are the implications? And we started writing. And in the spring of 2023, with Dr. Padki, Keith and I and Maria and Dr. Padki published The Economic Potential of E-Waste Recycling in Minnesota, a pilot study. And we presented the results of that here in this room last year at the Iron Range Earth Fest in April 2023. We learned some things along the way. We learned that e-mining is 1/13 as costly as virgin mining, and it uses 1/10 of the energy. And according to Cost Mine Intelligence, which is a global publication, of all of the precious metal mines under construction around the planet right now, the projected life is 15 to 30 years. E-waste is forever. And as Maria said, it's increasing at 4% per year, which means it doubles every 18 years. That's a lot of e-waste. In Minnesota, we used the Global E-Waste Monitor's figure of 46 pounds per capita. That's calculated to indicate how much e-waste is generated by continent, and that's the figure for North America. We multiplied that by Minnesota's population, and we came up with over 266 million pounds a year. Of that e-waste, only 24% is collected for processing. And that made us wonder what's happening to the rest of it.
As Marlise said, in Minnesota, we only collect around 1/4 of the total e-waste generated every year. And that means electronics are ending up in the trash. Often Minnesotans do not have the information or the means to conveniently recycle their old electronics. And for those who do, they usually need to pay to do so. When electronics are thrown in the trash, they end up in landfills, where they leach out harmful chemicals that will in turn pollute the water and the soil, and eventually our bodies. Though e-waste only makes up 2% of the material present in our landfills today, according to the US EPA, it contributes 70% of the toxic metal pollution, like mercury and lead. Toxicologists have observed many negative effects from being exposed to the chemicals in e-waste, including decreased lung function, spontaneous abortions, stillbirths, premature births, and a decrease in educational outcomes, especially for exposed children. Unrecycled e-waste is also costing millions to Minnesota businesses and taxpayers every year. Fires from the batteries from electronic devices are increasing year over year. And leaders from the waste industry report losing 1 to 3% of their entire waste handling infrastructure to these fires every single year. This was a transfer station, $20 million transfer station in Blaine, Minnesota. When a lithium-ion battery ended up here in 2018, it started a fire that would result in a complete loss of this facility. Battery fires also put workers at risk. This waste hauling truck was purchased by Koochiching County Environmental Services just a week before it started this truck on fire. Nationally, one hauling truck starts on fire from a battery every single week on average. Landfill operators report spot fires every few days. Unfortunately, these spot fires are not always successfully contained. In Rice County, Minnesota, May of last year, a lithium-ion battery started a fire that would burn the size of a football field and 30 feet deep. It took them a week to put out this fire, and in the meantime, it polluted the air, the water, and the soil for thousands of Minnesotans. The 24% of e-waste that is collected for recycling in our state is sent to recyclers who break down the components and sell the critical metals to a smelter. Smelters who purchase shredded electronic waste are huge companies like Arubis and Mitsubishi, and none of them are operating here in the US. That means that a US manufacturer wanted to take advantage of these circular metals to produce something like a solar panel, for example. they would need to purchase them back on the international market. There is an opportunity here to repatriate these metals and the jobs associated with recovering them, and in doing so, protect workers and the environment from the potential harms of smelting.
Here's what that might mean for Minnesota. There's that 266 million pound figure right in the middle that we talked about. On the left, you see Minnesota's population and the 46 pounds per capita. That doesn't mean that you generate 46 pounds worth of e-waste yourself, although you generate some, but all of our medical facilities, educational institutions, government offices, businesses create e-waste. And when you take that total, divide it by the population for North America, it's 46 pounds. Multiply the population by 46, you get the 266 million. And according to Keith's calculations, there are 68 critical minerals in that mix that are worth $3.18 billion every year. And research shows that recycling that many pounds of e-waste creates 3,345 jobs. Nobody wants a smelter in their backyard. They're notoriously polluting. But the good news is there's technology that's being used right now involving both mechanical separation and microbes, using microbes to extract those critical metals from e-waste. And they're low environmental impact methods, and they're such that they can be scaled to a small setting. That means we might be able to have those kinds of jobs in addition to the other recycling jobs here, right here on the Iron Range. But how are we going to get our recycling rate up from 24%?
In the Minnesota State Legislature, right now, a bipartisan piece of legislation is being introduced. It is called the 100% E-Waste Collection Bill, and it will completely change the game for e-mining in Minnesota. Industry experts and grassroots volunteers have come together to create a solution to increase our state's collection rate fourfold. This program will provide free e-waste recycling for all Minnesotans by using the sales of new electronic devices to fund collection. Unlike the 24 other e-waste collection programs across the U.S., this bill addresses the entire e-waste stream and invests in research to improve material recovery and work towards the repatriation of e-mining jobs for Minnesota.
So, what can you do? You can talk to your families, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors. Look in your junk drawer, check your storage unit, find out what you've got available. With this bill, change is possible. It's on the horizon. You have the power to make it happen. And we can take the lead in e-mining right here, right on the range. We can take Minnesota's trash and turn it into our treasure. Are you in? Thank you.